Some of the greatest investors publish books about their principles is because they know if people make the right decisions, they get the right outcomes over a long enough time horizon. If you can't buy it twice, don't buy it once. And realistically, probably 3, 4, 5, 6 times. When I got into investing, I used to think, oh, I'm gonna put like a third into this. And they were like, dude, no, your biggest allocation might be 10%. Oh, if you can't buy twice, don't buy once. If a deal feels like a grand slam, get a second opinion. Whenever I'm looking at something and something looks amazing, I automatically send it to other people. I must not be seeing something like, I need someone else's eyes on this. It's a good, easy decision-making rule for yourself for investing. If you don't know how you can lose money, don't do it until you do. There's always a way to lose money in the deal. And you not only want to find a way to lose money, but you want to find all the ways you can lose money in the deal, right? We're always controlling for the unknown or the unknowable. We want to minimize that to the highest degree possible. So if you don't know how you can lose money, don't do the deal until you do. If it's complicated, pass. If it feels above your head, it probably is. People want to feel fancy. They want to get into the room. They want to do these deals. But if you don't get it, you're gonna get fucked. If you have complete understanding of something, the risk goes down because you understand the variables. If you're barely catching on, you might as well be gambling, which is not the way to invest. If someone's non-responsive, no deal. Communication is one of the most important things when you're doing any kind of business in general. And I judge someone very quickly on how meticulous they are in their responses and how quick they are to respond in general. Now, if someone says, hey, I received your email, I'll get back to you in 2 days, and then they get back to me in 2 days, that's fine. It's about expectation setting and expectation meeting. I expect, especially in this process where I'm just getting to know you, what you say is going to happen is going to happen. It's one of the easiest ways to build a reputation is do what you're gonna say what you're gonna do. And if someone's not doing that with you, don't do the deal. If it doesn't build your reputation, don't do it. No neutral moves. Your brand, personally, your reputation is the one thing that you take with you forever. And you absolutely can lose it, and it can be irreparably damaged. I'd only do it if it builds my reputation. When we do that, we continue to reinvest in our reputation, in our personal brand, which gives us compounding returns over our entire lifespan in terms of relationships, in terms of literally financial returns, and all other aspects of life. Only invest if it builds your reputation. If it doesn't build, don't do it. If it's the same thing you've always done well with, do more of it. We as humans or entrepreneurs, we like having variety. The thing is that a lot of investing, a lot of compounding comes from doing more of the same thing. So it's like, hey man, I've done 3 hard money loans and they've all been awesome. It's like, well then you should probably consider doing a 4th rather than starting to get into crypto day trading. What happens is you start to build your own track record. And so you can start looking back over your shoulder and be like, okay, let's look at all the things that I've done. These have been the things that have worked well. Maybe I'm better at this stuff. And so that's the idea. Once you find something that you're starting to get good at, do more of it. Because the thing is that your luck will improve the more you do. Ask stupid questions, define terms, draw pictures, see examples, and if you can't draw it back, you don't get it. I start every single call when somebody's gonna bring me something, I'll be like, pretend I'm a golden retriever that doesn't speak English. Walk me through this. There's no advantage to somebody thinking you know more than you do. None. But there is advantages to you knowing more than they think you do. Always play the fool. Rich people will always pay for speed. The easiest way to appeal to the rich is just do the same thing in half the time. Whatever the service is, if it's dry cleaning, return it by end of day. If you only have a phone number, be the person that can accept anything. If they email you, shoot you a text, if they WhatsApp you, if they phone call, you can accept anything because you've made it convenient. They just want it to be effortless. The third is if we know what products and services they want, how to price those things appropriately. When you solve rich people problems, you get to charge rich people prices. When you deal with rich people, you have unlimited upside, which is why they are better customers. There's 5 things I want to talk about from the customer's perspective, because if you increase the quality of your customers, you increase the quality of your business. Number 1, when you charge more money for your products or services, you get an increased emotional investment. If you have a very low cost item, people won't even give it the time of day. And so when you raise the price, you raise their emotional investment, and in a real way, you actually increase the likelihood that they get results. The second way that it'll help your customers is that it will increase their perceived value. There was a research study where they had 3 bottles of wine. They had a cheap wine, a mid-price wine, and an expensive wine. They had people try them out, and they had them rank them based on what they thought. So people said, oh, I think the most expensive wine's the best, the middle price is the middle, and the cheapest wine was the worst. And that's not that surprising, except when the researchers explained that all 3 wines were the same. When you raise your prices, a more expensive thing is perceived in real terms as more valuable, even if the actual core product is the same. The third is results. for your customers. If you increase their emotional investment, you increase their perceived value, what ends up happening? They actually do get better results. When they sign up for the gym for personal training versus a $10 a month thing, they get better results. The fourth thing that happens when you raise your prices, you actually attract less demanding customers. Have you ever seen this meme? The customer says, well, what exactly am I gonna be getting for $50? And then it has the rich customer who's like, wire sent, let me know what next steps are. Anybody who's ever been in client services can attest to this. The higher the price tag, the more expensive the contract, the fewer payment plans you have to set up, the easier the customer is to deal with. Part of the reason that a $50 person is saying, well, what exactly am I be getting? If somebody's got $100 in their bank account, you're asking for 50% of their net worth. Just because someone's willing to pay you doesn't mean that you should take it. The fifth benefit that your customers will get as a result of raising your prices is that you actually have more money you can deliver on your promises for. So imagine you've got a hard cost thing that costs $5 and you charge $8. Well, you only have $3 left to run the rest of your business, provide service. You don't have a lot of room there. Now imagine you charge $50 for that same $5 thing. You have $45 that you can now use to deliver 2, 3, 4 times the value. The customer gets a better experience. You can reinvest in your product. You can attract higher level talent to your business. If you have no margin, the best people aren't gonna work for you. They're gonna go to the real business owner who understands how margin needs to work. Whereas you're sitting here dealing with fires all day because of people haggling over $50, the best way to sell is having the full conviction that your product is the best. And you can't say your product's the best if you're trying to do it on margin and you don't have the money to reinvest in good people. You can't do it. The one thing that limits every business is the entrepreneur. Not the opportunity, not the business vehicle, not anything else, it's the entrepreneur. Everything stems from them. There's 3 things. You've got the skills of the entrepreneur, the character traits of the entrepreneur, and then you have what I would call the beliefs of the entrepreneur. What do they believe about the world to be true? And what do they believe about the world to be true that isn't?
We have so many of these belief statements that like quote society or things that we inherit, but we just choose to say that this is how life is.
Which you've got the ladder of success. Skills on one side, beliefs on the other side, and then you've got character traits in the middle as the rungs. You might have a tremendous amount of skills and great character, but your beliefs are limited. If all of a sudden you see somebody have an overnight success, it's usually because they had 2 of the 3 already very, very high level, but they were missing some huge part. Some belief was wrong. So for example, for me, when I went from 2 million to 7 to just under 30 in a matter of like 3 years, I believed things that were true about the world that weren't. And I didn't know that licensing was a model. I didn't know I could expand in that way. And in so doing, I was able to explode because I got into the right vehicle. The vehicle wasn't the limiter. It was me and my beliefs about it. And then as soon as I changed the way I saw the world, I was able to get into a much better vehicle and explode from there. And so I think that the amount of time that elapses between wanting to figure something out and doing something, the more advanced you get, shortens. I remember it took me 3 years to figure out how to build a landing page, and the day I decided to do it, it took me 4 hours. So it took me 3 years and then 4 hours to actually figure it out because I was avoiding the feeling of sucking. And so if you can confront sucking faster and just get over that idea that sucking is a bad thing, then I think you compress the time between you and the skills you want. The best way to break a belief is to see someone doing what you thought was not real and then have it happen. A lot of people have heard of the Roger Bannister story, first man to break a 4-minute mile, and then the next year, 28 people or whatever it was broke the 4-minute mile. And I remember there was a moment where I was in a mastermind and there was a guy making, I think $350,000 a month. And he got up there and he sounded like an idiot. And Layla and I looked at each other afterwards and we're like, if he can do it, we can do it.
Number 1 is, what problem are we solving? A lot of times you realize that you're not solving a problem at all, which means you probably don't need to do it. This is especially true the lower in the organization it goes because people who are lower down in the org tend to not be as connected to the overarching picture of the company. Simple example, most goals have to be chunked up to one of 3 things. Number 1, they're going to help us get more customers. Number 2 is that it's going to help us make customers worth more. And number 3, it's going to increase the enterprise value of the company. If you can't articulate why the goal is going to do that, then you shouldn't do it. So number 1, pick what problem you're actually trying to solve. Simple example, if IT decreases the page load times on all of our sites, we will get more leads. We get more leads, we get more customers, etc. If IT improves the sign-on process for customers to have access to something, that will mean we have fewer customers churn, which means we will make customers more valuable. If you can't tie how your department and the function that you have either gets us more customers, makes them worth more, increases the enterprise value of the business, means you don't understand your job. And if you're the entrepreneur or the head of the department, you don't know how you're actually providing value to the business. Breaking that down is the first and most important part of goal setting. If this process actually makes you think, then it means you're doing it right. It takes a lot of 0 to 1, a lot of shiny object, a lot of new things, a lot of trial and error, a lot of iterate until something clicks in the beginning. But big businesses often grow by a series of 1% improvements. 1%, 1%, 1%. Because you've seen the Excel math when you're like, well, if I only got 10% more people to opt in, and I got 15% more people to schedule, and I got 20% more people to show, and I closed one from 25% to 35%. You add all this together, and all of a sudden, you tripled the business. And the thing is that everyone gets so distracted with like I'm gonna reinvent the wheel, rather than just making the wheel a little smoother so it runs faster. And so a lot of times, especially in the 5, 10, 15, $20 million top line range, that's some of the systems we have to put in place, because that's how the big boys play. They beat you because they actually can do 100 tiny increments. I think Gym Launch grew 40% last year, and we did nothing new. All we did was we did everything we were currently doing a little bit better. If you do that year after year after year, you become very hard to beat, because people will see your marketing on the outside. They'll try and copy your pages, they'll try and copy your emails, and one, it won't be you, so it won't matter because it's not your story. But they don't know all the internal standard operating procedures, the internal metrics that you guys are tracking that actually create the growth in the company. And a lot of times in the early business, just measuring metrics may be the important goal for the quarter so that you can then improve it. Let's say you're a videographer in a marketing department, right? Each of these goals should start from the top down. So if we say these are our 5 goals as a company, the department heads are going to probably have multiple activities to make the first hypothesis true or not. I like to have everybody as far down in the organization do this, because it actually causes you to think about why you do what you do. A lot of times employees lose motivation because they don't know how what they do every day ties into the bigger picture of how the company grows and makes more money. With a videographer, for example, they're like, well, what do I do? Like, what problem am I solving? The problem is get more customers. They might not think about it that way, but that's the goal. Well, my hypothesis is either we might say it's a volume thing, which is if I double the amount of shorts I make, then we will get more traffic to our website from our organic content. And at the end of the quarter, did you make twice as many shorts? Okay, green, fantastic. Did that result in more link clicks on the site? Oh, it didn't. Huh, interesting. I wonder what would do it. Okay, we need to create more content that's more story-based. Great, go back to the beginning. If we create more story-based content, we will get more link clicks to website. That's why goal setting, if done right, should take work, because it makes you think, why am I even doing what I'm doing? And if you don't take like a day for a whole quarter to think, why am I even bothering to do this? Then why are you bothering to do it without understanding what you're trying to improve? And the thing is if you think this way as a teammate or an entrepreneur, I promise you, you will be so much more valuable to your company if you can even think like a business owner. And this is how a good business owner should think. And if you can approach whoever runs your company with this model, you may find that they will see you differently, because they're like, wow, Timmy, who's making these video clips, is actually thinking about what I care about, which is how I'm gonna get more customers. Whatever the second part of the statement is. If you know what you're actually trying to accomplish in the business, then it makes it a lot easier. What problem are we solving? What's our hypothesis? What are we gonna do? What do we think is gonna happen? Did we do it? Did it happen? That's it. And so that has been the simplest goal setting framework that we've used. We use this across all our portfolio companies. That's what we do across everything. And it's been the simplest thing that I've seen. I haven't seen it anywhere else. It's worked for us, and maybe it'll work for you. To go slow to go fast. And he kept repeating it to me over and over and over again. You only unlock the compounding, which later on grows significantly faster than the erratic activity of small thing here, new thing here, new thing here, than just doing the same thing for an extended period of time. And so what feels slow in the micro looks fast in the macro when you look at the trajectory over a long period of time. But what looks really fast in the micro is usually really slow in the macro, because people can never get that compounding start harnessing, because they're always starting back over at ground zero. Whenever you change something, the one cost is guaranteed, is that change will have to get paid for. And what isn't guaranteed is that it's gonna work. You know you have this fixed cost, which is how you should see it, is that whenever you change something, you have to pay a price. One of my early mentors told me about flyers. I thought I needed to go put a lot of flyers out to get business. Put out 300 flyers. So I called the mentor back up and I was like, hey, this didn't work. And he's like, what was your test size? What do you mean by test size? And I just put out 300 total. And he just laughed. 300? Like, you're not gonna know anything with 300. He's like, we test with 5,000 and then we do 5,000 a day after that.
5,000 a day?
150,000 flyers a month. I might have been doing the right thing all along, but I was just doing far too little of it. And at that point, I decided that whenever someone gave me advice, I wouldn't let the volume of activity to be the reason it failed. But I just hadn't done enough of them, or I hadn't done them long enough. I see so many smaller, younger entrepreneurs who do something for too short, too little time, not enough volume, that they might have been doing the right thing. They just didn't wait long enough, or they didn't do enough of it. Fat pitches in life don't come very often. When it gets easy is when you need to go hard. Otherwise, there's someone who's 10 times bigger than you who's gonna take everything you have and not even think twice about it. That was literally fueled by that one conversation. If you're like, wait, how are you doing 300,000 or 400,000 a month, taking home 300? I had like no employees and I was making it all myself. You do have one of those opportunities that comes up in your life when things start working really well. That's when a lot of people ease off the gas. That's when they go easy. When it gets easy is when you go hard, because you don't have that many fat pitches in a lifetime. You might get 2 or 3, and you just gotta crack the shit out of it when it comes and expect that you're going to sacrifice some short term for some long term later. Number 8, the same event, a different guy came up to me. He said, you're like doubling every month with this current thing. Like, why do you want to start a supplement business? What if you just spent 3 times as much on marketing and didn't start a supplement business? I didn't start the supplement business. I actually delayed it for 18 months. In the next 3 months, we tripled the ad spend and went from 400 to 780, from 780 to $1 million, from $1 million to $2 million, just the next 6 months because of that piece of advice. And I think the underlying part of that advice is that when something is going well, oftentimes entrepreneurs think, great, I won, how can I get another win? But the real win is just doing 10 times more of that thing. The hardest part is getting product market fit. It's getting people to want to buy the thing. Once you have that, you don't need to innovate that anymore. All your innovation has to go through, how can we do more volume? Number 12, this was one of the first billionaires that I ever met. I'd been stuck at 30 to 40 million for like 3 years. So there was a lot of learning that I was trying to do in this period to break through that wall. I was telling him all these things that I was doing to try and grow my business, and he just laughed. He said, it's not about you. It's about everybody else. And what he meant by that wasn't like me versus customers or anything like that. He was like, all you've been telling me is what you're going to do. You need to have a stable of stallions. You need to give people a slice of the pie and let them get rich too. And up to that point, I had hoarded everything. I was like, you know what got me from $100 million top line to $500 million top line? Doing less and getting really smart people to help me out and giving them a big slice. It's about talent. It's about people. You have to get other people who can make decisions on your behalf, and you feel not only that they were as good as your decisions, but even better. Because in the beginning, you're a jack of all trades, master of none, but you need to have mastery in every department of the business in order for it to scale. And you can either see that as I have to learn everything, or the faster way, which is I can go buy it through other people who've already given 10 years. Or if I can get 10 people who've all spent 20 years in their respective departments, I basically have 200 years of experience. And if every person in the organization has learned everything from you, then it's only one brain and one lifetime. That is the limit of the organization. That thing is what got us past the 30 to 40 million. It is arrogant to believe that you are going to outcompete other people who are fully focused on one thing when you are split on 5. Ben Francis started Gymshark when he was 17, and now he's 28 or 29. He's got $1 billion thing. Could he have tasted more stuff? Sure, he tasted from like 14 to 17, right? But then when he started that, he's been doing it for 10 or 11 years now. And now he's $1 billion thing. The work needs doing, and you just need to decide when you want to start the compounding clock in your favor, which means how long can I commit to this thing? And so I would say, once you've had a little bit of your entrepreneurial licks as fast as you can to learn those lessons, you have to think, what need to believe is there that I do not think will change over an extended time horizon? And then serve that. Every day, all you do is you look at how to do better and how to do more of it. And it's gonna kill you inside because you like doing new shit. And that's what was positively reinforced your entire life as an entrepreneur in the beginning. And then you have to unlearn that lesson, because that's what it takes to get big, is you do the same thing and you just do it that much better than everyone else. And that takes time. Fame has pros and cons. There are cons, but I believe that there are more pros than cons. Are there things that are inconvenient now? Absolutely. You get stopped every time you go out to dinner, like you get disrupted. It's harder to be like private in public. If you have a bad day, you can't do it because someone says hi and it's the one time they're gonna see you. There are things that are cons, but the pros outweigh the cons. You get amazing people who will come and want to work with you. You get amazing teammates who otherwise would never know you exist, who also have the same mission, have the same values, and it creates significantly more alignment and real world value in terms of economic value, how much money you make by having people inbound coming towards you. This one conversation I had changed my life. He was telling somebody who had a lot of real estate experience. If you were to put a circle on this table, what percentage of your brain knows real estate? And he was like, I guess 85%. Okay, what percentage of your brain knows stocks and stuff? He's like, oh, 10 or 15%. He's like, that is your new capital allocation parameter. 85% of your net worth should be in real estate, 15% should be in stocks. And it was so simple for me. I know business. And so what do I invest in now? Only businesses. Only risky if you don't know what you're doing. I can write a $5 or $10 million check and be fine if I know if it's a business, because I understand. I know what pitfalls are gonna come up. Like, I get it. Sticking with that just forever made my life simpler, because now when deals come to us, I'm like, that's just not in my wheel. And I can just immediately say no. So the amount of time and effort and lawyer calls and conversations that saved me has paid so many dividends. And now our investing doing significantly better because it's what I know. An exceptional product is a quadratic relationship with your audience. Good marketing or good sales is a linear relationship. If you make an exceptional product, something that's so unbelievable that people cannot help themselves but tell other people about it. And one person buys the product and they tell 2, 2 tell 4, 4 tell 8. How do I do that? You work on it and you keep working on it, and you don't make new products until the first one's right. And if you're like, that might take years. That's why good shit takes time. $100 million offers. That book continues to sell more copies every month with zero advertising dollars. Actually less work in the long run to build a better thing than it is to build a shitty thing and then have to spend the rest of your time marketing and selling it. You want to have leverage in every aspect of your business, and the product is the strongest. So there was a friend of mine who had a podcast that blew up, and very quickly he had millions of downloads, and his business started to grow. It skyrocketed. And it was almost 100% from people who were listening to his podcast. And what happened was he made an ask during one of his podcasts. He made a lot of money. He thought, when I make an ask, I make more money. And so what I'll do is I'll just make more asks. He learned the wrong lesson. And so he did make more asks, and he then made a little bit more money, and then he continued to make less and less and less until eventually his listenership dropped and dropped and dropped because he had lost the goodwill of his audience. The key point I'm going to talk about today is mastering the give to ask ratio. How much to give versus how much to ask. Gary Vee popularized the whole concept jab, 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 right hook, which is the idea of giving, 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 and then asking. Not take, but ask. The good news is this ratio has been incredibly well studied. Why? Because the biggest media companies in the world want to be able to ask on their platforms as much as humanly possible without losing viewership, listenership, audience. On television, for every 47 minutes of content, there's 13 minutes of advertising. If you look on Facebook, every 4 posts, there's 1 ad. It's almost like a 3-to-1 ratio between how many ads there are and how much content there is. Instead of give, 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 ask, I'd like to just change it to give until they ask you. And that's when you know your audience is ready for you to make an offer. And my personal preference here is actually to give in public and sell in private. Whenever you give, you deposit goodwill into the audience. If you give someone something first, they're far more likely to comply with your request later. When someone helps us, we feel indebted to them and we want to help them back, right? That's how society works. But with media, we can do that at scale. You can gain goodwill and provide value to millions of people at once, but then it all funnels back to one person. And that's why it's so powerful. And it's free. Because I am in the game of making money. My goal is to always have significantly less supply than I have demand. And I always want to keep that demand because that is the holy grail of what you want, which is far more people who want to do business with you than you have capacity to do so. The strongest driver of pricing power and profits is supply and demand. When we make content, what we're actually doing is artificially shifting the demand curve in our favor. And the other side of this is that if you are the business owner, you control supply. And so you can inflate your demand and at the same time cut your supply. And when you have that happen, price goes through the roof, and so do your profits. Kobe Bryant was famous for doing this, where he would do 2 practices a day.
My name is Kobe Bryant, 17 years old. Fridays and Saturdays, I would go in my rec room with my basketball and basically dribble myself to sleep. I think that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Because during those lonely hours in the rec room, I discovered the hunger, the motivation, and the desire to be the best possible basketball player that I could be.
And he thought, if everybody else does 1 practice a day, if I do 2 a day, I will get better faster. And in the beginning, the difference is not that noticeable. But after 5 years, and then 10 years, he becomes unbeatable. Whether you're trying to get into law, or you're trying to get into accounting, or you're trying to get into sales, or you're trying to get into marketing, whatever the core activity that you do, making videos, making ads, writing sales pages, actually doing sales calls, whatever it is, if you do 2 times or 4 times the volume, you will get better, faster, and pay down your ignorance debt at a faster rate that compounds. He has compounded the number of hours in the trenches learning the thing. Respect is always earned, and the younger you are, the more you have to earn it. And you can either resent the world for not giving you respect that you do not deserve, or you can go get it. Hustle across age, gender, culture is always respected. Your ability to provide value will compound with time, especially as you start pairing skills. If you think about Jay-Z in the beginning of his career, the first thing he did was he learned how to rap.
Jay-Z's embarrassing, your time master, bigger the rhyme master, bigger the last Jay-Z rhyme, so you can say I'm so profane line. Peace.
And then he started learning how to promote, another skill, significantly more money. And then after that, figured out how to do a record label and distribute. Even more money. And then after that, he figured out how to recruit other artists and get them signed on his label, even more money. And so what happens is that he still needs these early skill sets. Even though he didn't monetize them hard there, he monetized them big later. Skills will compound. If you have 1 + 1 + 1, it doesn't equal 3 when it comes to skills. If you are good at math, cool. If you learn bookkeeping, a little bit more. If you learn how to become an accountant, even more. If you start understanding taxes and insurance, all of a sudden you're a CFO. Now, if you start understanding M&A and mergers, entity structures, all of a sudden you're not only a CFO, you're a rainmaker. You're somebody who can bring in deals, execute deals, etc. The earning potential difference between somebody who's an accountant and a rainmaker is tens of millions of dollars per year. So one of my heroes, Warren Buffett, he finished top of his class at Columbia Business School. Somebody who finished his top of their class at Columbia can get a job paying very well in most places. But guess what he did? He asked Ben Graham to let him work at his investment firm for free. Ben Graham was one of the goats of investing at the time when Warren Buffett was just a kid coming out of college.
The chance to study under him, it shaped my professional life.
And guess what Ben Graham said to him when he asked him to work for him? He said, "You're overpriced." Ben Graham knew, just as Warren Buffett knew, that even though he was working for free, it was going to cost Ben Graham more to deliver all of the skills and all of the things that he would need to be successful than the monetary compensation. But because Warren Buffett is smart, he realized that he was in a season of learning and not earning yet. He was willing to invest, as one of the greatest investors of all time, in the thing that was most important and valuable to him at the time, himself. And he did it for free. Number 4, decide how much you're going to invest first before you spend money. Prioritization comes from that's literally prior, it comes first, right? It's that you take the money off the top and you say, this money has been prioritized for my learning, my education. And then whatever you have left, that you can spend. All that money, that account, you can let it stockpile up, and then you see something that you want to learn and then deploy the capital. Not, what do I have left at the end of the month, can I afford it? You've got this big pile of gold over here that every month you plow into, and then when you see the opportunity, you make the decision, you pull the trigger. Number 7, get takeout, don't cook your food. Very contrarian, I know. As soon as you make more than $15 an hour, it makes more sense for you to work that day, get the takeout food, and get the time back. It makes more sense financially. Most people can, like, if you're not being a weirdo, you can eat out for 10 bucks-ish a meal, and you eat out twice a day, it's 20 bucks a day, $600 a month. Maybe if you went to the grocery store, it'd be what, 100 bucks a week versus $150 a week? Is the net $50 a week? Can you not make that up for the meal prep, going to the grocery store, cutting, cooking, cleaning? You're saving the pennies rather than investing in the mega millions, which is you. Check your account every single morning. Until I started doing it, I stayed poor. I didn't want to look at my bank account because it would hurt my feelings. Seriously, I would look at it and I would just feel poor. But that's okay. You have to confront reality in order to change it. Man, money's pouring out of this thing left and right. Once I got a pulse on it, I knew Tuesdays is when I pay for this. Thursdays is when I pay for this. It's a habit that once you learn it, it's hard to forget. And I promise you, just like losing weight, if you get someone to measure the weight every day, get someone to measure the bank account every day, it'll improve. The reason